1 2 1 2. Welcome everyone. It's Wednesday night's Rise Above.
Rise above, generate, rise above, extinguish fear, rise above.
How's everybody in the chat room? Let me know if you can hear me. I think that intro is a bit loud. How we got 66 people watching now. Big up everyone in the chat room. King, I for an eye. I'm sure Sam Carno's around there somewhere. Lee Redpath. I'll say hello to Inner Guardians. Salutations, Inner Guardians.
Salutations.
How you doing?
Yeah, very well actually. Yeah.
Excellent.
In good spirits.
In good spirits. That's what we like to hear. So yeah, it's midweek. You called this one, Master Lee. You've invited us here for this Wednesday night chat, but I will get down to just a few bits of usual business because I've got a few announcements before we get down to tonight's topic, which is third option synthesis.
Sure.
Sounds interesting. So, right, let me go back to where we were. Right, so yeah, guys. This week, I have edited the John Hamer interview. I have sorted out the sound, and I've made it into a nice hour and something chunk, and it is uploaded to the other station, which is just Rise Above. I think we should have just hit 1,000 subscribers on there, so it's easily searchable now. And this is the station if you want to share it with friends and family, and you want to show them like a chunk of Rise Above without like a 6 or 7 hour stream. So the John Hamer interview is up there with improved sound, and we will be getting him back. He really enjoyed coming on. I chatted to John. We're going to have some more targeted questions for when we get him back on, because I want to get a little bit more out of him, I think. Right, some big news. This Saturday, after the outreach protest in Bournemouth, I'm going to go and cover street journalistic style. I've bagged a set for myself and Omar Beats at the after party in Bournemouth at Club DNA on Old Christchurch Road. It starts at 6 p.m. It goes on to 11. I believe it's £5 entry. You can get your tickets at jamforfreedom.com/shop. Omar Beats and myself, Double LMC, we will be performing an exclusive Rise Above grime, bass line, and drum and bass set, I think. Yeah, that's probably how it's going to go. So, yeah, if you want to come and see us do our thing live, it's actually much better than when we do it in the studio. You get to see us properly go for it. Come down, support the guys that are putting the after party on. Big up Jam for Freedom. Big shout out to Campbell. Ramis, what was that? Ramis will be there as well. Hopefully I'll be seeing him during the day. So yeah, please come and support us and come and say hello. I might be giving away some t-shirts as well. Speaking of t-shirts, riseabove.news/shop. I've just put the link up here. If you want to support us, we don't ask for donations or beg or anything like that. We do sell t-shirts and hoodies and stickers though. And they've all got the QR code on, so people could go straight to the website and find out more about what we're talking about, some of the ideas we're putting on the table. Excuse me. Yeah, so that was just, that's our regular business. This Friday, we have Human Vibration coming back. She's going to be talking about templates of a crumbling reality. Now, just from the title, you can tell it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. So we're really looking forward to Friday night. Okay. Now, I've done some waffling and, the usual Rise Above business. Like I said, Inner Guardians, a.k.a. Master Lee, called tonight's little soiree a Wednesday night because there was something particular you wanted to talk about. That's right, isn't it, Lee?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, look at that. He got dropped out as soon as we said that. Okay, so I'll give the introduction. Third option synthesis. Let's get Inner Guardians back. That's better. You're back.
Yep.
Okay. So, third option synthesis. Now, I've got the Hegelian dialects graphics here up on the screen. The Hegelian dialects is something that gets banded around a lot, and we sort of think about it as the most obvious manifestation of it is left versus right politics. So you think of it as like two binaries just opposing each other. Well, yes and no, right? Because the Hegelian dialect actually works like this. Okay, there is an agenda. You present a thesis and an antithesis. So this would be the binaries, the choice between A or B. This is good, this is bad, left or right. But it's actually when these two come together, they form the synthesis. So the examples given here. The agenda is centralisation of power and oligarchy. The first thesis is a terror event, whether fake or real. The antithesis is increasing police state. These both come from the same agenda, but the synthesis, them coming together, is the removal of freedoms and the transfer of power. So it says here, the Hegelian dialectic is any systematic reasoning, exposition, or argument that juxtaposes opposed or contradictory ideas and usually seeks to resolve their conflict. Now, we probably can think of many ways this plays out. But what we're going to talk about tonight, in the Guardians especially, I think, is where this probably plays out even more than we think. And sometimes it might even be playing out on one side of an argument, which we might think is the right side, or how should we say, the counter narrative, right? In the Guardians.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this for a few months, or alluding towards it, that even within the counter narrative movement, there's not an agreement. So I've finally realized that there's actually three parts to the counter narrative. One is those seeking the truth, those that are seeking to awaken, and those that are seeking freedom. Now, they are all similar, but they're not all the same thing.
Okay, so people that are seeking freedom, people seeking the truth, and people that are seeking to be awake. And you're saying those aren't the same thing?
No, they're kind of like cousins, but they're not the same thing. But it often gets mistaken as the same thing. So people talk about the Great Awakening. Personally, as everybody knows, I don't like that term, because I don't actually think that's what's happening. I don't think it's lawful under cosmic law that everybody awakens.
Well, you know, I always talk about the law of one, which is sort of one interpretation of cosmic law, which is quite, you know, something that people can look into, and talks about the harvest. And in a harvest is the separation of the wheat from the chaff. You know, there isn't a harvest in the world where every single grain gets harvested.
Correct.
There's always some that goes back into the land.
Yeah.
To re-fertilize and reinvigorate the land, right?
Yeah, because it's lawful. Because this dimension is made up of triads. So there's always three parts, the positive, negative, and the neutral. And that law plays out in everything, even in the counter-narrative movements. And this is why, in my opinion, there's a lot of confusion, even within the counter-narrative movement. Because we tend to be clumped together, and that we're all seeking the same thing, when that's not actually the case. And I experience this on a daily basis, even with just the Inner Guardians channel. So there'll be plenty of people that anti-narrative, but then they'll quite happily turn against me and call me an occultist, or because I don't have a particular faith.
Usually it's Christians, let's be honest, that take this path with you.
Yes, yeah. See, they want freedom, but at the same time, they want everybody to be Christian. And you could probably say that's true for most religions. I've coined a new term for 2022, which is ideas over dogma. And this links to the coming of this new age. And even the term new age has been psyopted from the 60s.
Is that going to be the new mind over matter? Ideas over dogma?
Yeah, because we're moving into an age of mentalism, where mind precedes matter, where the responsibility of control is to the individual to be able to manifest or co-create or be an active participant in creation in this realm, as opposed to just following or believing in a particular dogma or for some emotional reason. The age of Pisces is more emotional. And it's also water. So Admiralty law, which has been at work.
Hence the symbol of the fish for Jesus.
Yeah, but I don't want to sort of isolate it just to Christians, because I think it's far, it spreads further than just one particular religion. But that was just an example. And then you got some that want freedom, but they don't want to awaken. they actually want to. They would see me as a pain or a threat, because all they want is to be free to go back to what they had before, in say 2019. So, for instance, you could be shoulder to shoulder at a protest with somebody that doesn't want to awaken, and they don't necessarily want the truth. They just want to go back to how things were in 2019 because life was pretty good for them.
The good old NHS, for instance, before the Soviet Union killed it.
Yeah.
Just an example. You know, I've come across people like that you know, I think we're on the same page, and then you say something about maybe we need a new solution. It's like no, it must be saved. It's like well, I've got a news flash. Maybe the euthanasia, the institutionalised euthanasia, started before the Soviet Union. Maybe this has been going on for years. In fact, I guarantee it has. So you know, yeah. I suppose it's like it's the old adage of the purple pill, and there's plenty of purple pill merchants, right? You know, the full scope of the red pill can be pretty breathtaking. It can break some people, and it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for everyone. I think maybe we're coming back to the same point. Some people aren't physically or metaphysically or spiritually capable of consuming the red pill.
No. And also they want others to do it for them. They want others to take their pill.
Yeah, or at least swallow the responsibility that comes with, you know, the full appreciation of what the red pill can show you about, you know, the actual nature of reality, the food chain aspect, for instance.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say something that's probably going to bring me a lot of heat, and it'll probably offend quite a lot of the counter-narrative movement.
Please do.
Right. I call them those without birth certificates. And whenever I say that, that basically means those that you will never see, those behind the faces that you see in the media or in government. So those without birth certificates, or if you want, you could call them commonly known as New World Order, or behind the New World Order. Yeah. Now, the New World Order, they want to get rid of the government too. Yeah. So you have to keep that in mind.
Yep.
They want rid of the government.
That is like goal number one.
Yeah.
You could even say that all of these, you know, the Britney Spears narrative, the Greta narrative, you could actually say, you know, Agenda 2030. You could also say that those things are actually secondary to the objective of removing world governments, because they're all sort of like symptomatic prerequisites of what you would need to do in order to justify getting rid of world governments and replacing it with something totally new. Yeah,
and they need consent as well. Well, it's ideal to have consent rather than it forced on us, because humans tend to do the opposite to what certain forces want. So it's easier to kind of, you know, it's like, as an example, I use the narrative of the sheep. The sheep follow the shepherd, but you do realize that more sheep get killed by the shepherd, taking them to the slaughter, than they do by wolves.
Well, most sheep will never see a wolf in their whole life.
Exactly.
And a lot of sheep are in countries where wolves aren't even like native. There are no wolves as far as some sheep are concerned. Yeah, that's.
So the shepherd gives the illusion that they are protecting the sheep, and the sheep will follow them for safety. But all the shepherd's doing is taking them to the slaughterhouse. Yeah. They stand more of a chance jumping the fence and tackling wolves than they do just quietly, passively following the shepherd. And that's a very good analogy to the situation that we're in right now.
But most sheep have never even been nipped in the arse by the sheepdog, let alone felt the staff of the shepherd.
Yeah, and I put a post on Inner Guardian's Facebook, and it's about not knowing is one thing, but not knowing that you don't know is another.
Yeah.
So it's okay to not know, as long as you know that you don't know, and you're actively looking or seeking to find out. But if you look at the population, I would say the overwhelming majority They don't even know that they don't know.
Well, what even worse? What about people that know that they don't know and are actually happy and don't want to find out? They actually have the
Free.
awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of like the negative third option, because in my opinion, that would be worse. That's sort of like, what's that? Cognitive ignorance, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, the making the decision to not find out.
Yeah, and I mean, it's on many levels. I spoke to somebody today, and I said to them about Canada, and they said, "Oh, what's going on in Canada then?" And I said, "What, don't you know?" And they said, "No." I said,
Right.
"Oh, okay. Well, where do I start?" I decided not to bother.
Well, if they haven't
Because,
heard of that, then what's going on there, which some people are saying is a huge psyop, and that's sort of why we're doing the show tonight. This is one of the on my list of bullet points of the working examples of third option synthesis. And let's bring it back to the minute point on the table. Let's zoom back in here, right? Because that's what we're talking about tonight. So we've got a situation in Canada where, on the face of it, everyone in the counter narrative resistance movement should be pleased about what's happening, because there's 100,000 trucks apparently that are all against tyranny, medical apartheid, mandates, travel restrictions, trading restrictions. They're basically against the whole Soviet Union. I've pretty much got the lowdown of the mandate. Word Nerd's going to give us an in-depth report about this on Friday. So on the face of it, he's got apparently a good 40 minutes worth, and he's been speaking to people in Canada.
yeah.
Now, on the face of it, everyone should be really pleased about this. But, and there's a big but that goes with it, we all know that famine and food shortages are on the table with Cyber Polygon and a few other things up Lord Schwab's sleeve. Now, however these things are achieved is not important, really, to the hidden hand or those who wish to crash the system. But if you wanted to break the global food chain, well, having a trucker strike would be the first thing you would do. I'm just saying, because I'm metaphysically fence-sitting here. I'm taking the third option. Can you go a bit further into how this works with this example of the truckers?
Yeah, well, like I said a moment ago, that those without birth certificates, they want rid of the government. So having the president or prime minister flee the country or go into some kind of underground bunker is actually their end goal agenda with all sovereign states and all governments. So
Like what happened in Kazakhstan recently?
yeah, you could almost see or say that the freedom movement is doing the work for those without birth certificates. Now,
Well, we've said this. This has been said about protesting before, about storming places, about tearing down Britney centres.
yeah, but I think in order to get more light onto this subject, you need to have a particular language. So if we call these protests or rallies, if you call them events, so if we use polarity, you've got two types of events. You've got organic ones, which would be naturally occurring pushback and resistance from a populace that are basically pissed off. And then you've got events that are psyopted, which means that they're either staged, they're red flags, orchestrated,
Or infiltrated.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, you also get a combination of the two. And I believe that this is what's happened with pretty much all pushback and resistance movements over the years.
You can see it plain as day in protests is the most obvious example. I've been pointing out for the last 3 years. When you see protesters turned up all wearing the same clothes, same colours with pre-printed signs, it's pretty obvious when a flash mob has been called in compared to an organic protest. You can spot that. So if you apply that blueprint across other events, because protest is, like you say, it's just an event.
Yeah. Well, I think most of them are combinations of the two. So they either start out as organic and then they get psyopted, or they start out as psyops, but they can also be used. They can be useful. People always used to ask me about Q and Trump, and I would always say that I would take the third option, and that it's a triple psyop. So as an example, right? Let's assume that the whole Q thing was a psyop.
Like Operation Trust from the Soviets, like a rerun of that, yeah, which is what people were quite rightly pointing out. There was big similarities.
But would it be fair to say that some people may have woken up, found the truth, even found relative freedom from QAnon?
Millions did. Millions undoubtedly did. This is the thing.
The same thing can be applied to Trump. Now, whether you like him as a person or whatever, he was kind of a bit awkward for the powers that shouldn't be.
He exposed a lot of things and said a lot of things that have never been said by a prime minister or a president before. And in the Guardians is back again. Yeah, he caused a lot of damage to the establishment that he is apparently a part of. He literally reversed like some of the main policies to do with climate change, to do with immigration. He reversed it all. I mean, it's all been reversed back again, obviously. Was that part of the show? Well, at the end of the day, if you wanted open borders and you wanted to go full steam ahead with Agenda 2030, why would you put someone in place for 4 years that would reverse it all, energise millions of people? He actually was coming out and saying global warming was bullshit. They're literally basically using that language. So,
well, I think what we're witnessing is the manifestation of triads, the third option, and the synthesis of events, within the movement. I'm trying not to use the word truth movement or the awakening movement or the freedom movement, because I think they're just thirds of the counter narrative movement. We're literally witnessing it in real time. And the only way you can make sense of this, because I think a lot of the people in these movements are being bamboozled or discombobulated or whatever fancy words you want to use, because they're actually turning against each other as well.
Well, we've seen it like in front of our faces, like in the last couple of years. Yeah. From it not being a thing to all of a sudden everyone's a shill. Everyone is getting suspicious of each other. No doubt. We said that we have to understand by default this movement, whatever you want to call it, will have been infiltrated from the get-go. It could have even been groomed into... well, obviously it's been groomed into its existence by the very act of the denying force. None of this would have ever happened if, this tyranny wasn't being rolled out, this technocratic Soviet Union wasn't being rolled out. We wouldn't be sat here talking about this.
Yeah, and I had confirmation today. I had a very interesting experience in IKEA. Some people love it, some people don't like it. Personally, to me, that is like walking through a psyops realm. It's got all of the signals of control and manipulation and NLP, hypnotherapy. It's got all kinds. Hypnosis. It's got all kinds of stuff all in one. Most people are totally oblivious to it, but I imagine by the time you get to the refreshments, most people are quite traumatized, even subconsciously. The whole place is full of sigils and word magic and control mechanisms.
I mean, I know enough about word magic to know that there was a spell being cast on me like the last time I walked through there. I felt like I wanted to buy things that I didn't need. Really random items as well. My eyes were constantly being pulled in different directions. And I've been studying this stuff for years. I used to use stuff like this, NLP and stuff when I was a door-to-door salesman because I'd learned about it. I used to smash it, so I'm very, very conscious of stuff like this. If someone tries to use these tricks on me, I see it straight away. But I found I felt like I was sort of wandering around, following, and my eyes look everywhere. Oh, wow, what's this? Touching things, being led around, and there's not another shop like it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's literally an experience. And anyway, the confirmation was that, for the most part, the majority of people in there would see me as a threat. They don't want to either know the truth, awaken, or even be free. In fact, they don't even, without being too judgmental, they don't deserve any freedom, nor do they want it. In fact, they thrive and they love tyranny. They love being told what to do. They love not knowing what the truth is. And I think that's a reflection of the population. And within esoteric and occult groups, it's always been known that it's actually not lawful for there to be a great awakening.
No, because in the great scheme of things, on the great shaded scale of this simuli, everything has to exist. You can't just have everyone waking up.
No.
There would be, like you say, there would be no food for the moon. There would be no fertilizer.
No, it would actually put the cosmos in jeopardy if
Well, yeah,
everybody
you
was
fuck
to
up the
wake
food chain.
Yeah, and it takes us back to the food chain, which on the first show that I came on, I did mention about the food chain, that is literally a first principle of having any in a standing of this realm, that you have to realize that we're living in a food chain on a day-to-day basis and on a cosmic scale.
Yeah.
And that one thing is giving food and the other thing is feeding. And the idea is that you do it symbiotically, and it's a shared experience of mutual benefit. Unfortunately, there's the dark occultists and those who play the hidden hand that manipulate that and usurp that and corrupt it, and they play around with nepotism so that they get more than everybody else. And they understand the laws, and they understand how things work, and they understand the psychology. So they have the advantage. And this is why it's the occult, because they hide it. They hide the knowledge that hypothetically is available to everybody, but it's been so buried and covered and layered that it's actually now quite tricky to find. But with the last 2 years of the greatest apocalypse ever, a lot of it is being exposed, and it has to be, albeit it's not very pleasant.
And I suppose then for the uninitiated, to the normie sphere, to those that previously didn't know there was even a wood there, now it's like, I can't see the forest for the trees. I've seen people who we would describe as normies post online in the last couple of years things like along the lines of, it's a crazy old world. Now it's become a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. I've seen comments and even threads like that. I've got this mate and he's one of those conspiracy theorists, and it's so annoying because everything he's saying keeps happening, and then, why didn't you're not starting to put two and two together? But yeah, now, like you say, there's so much of this coming to light, and so much sort of like of the background evidence to really sort of prove these things that a lot of people have been saying all along.
Yeah.
That it's just the needle. It's a needle in a haystack now.
Yeah. Well, with the advent of a new era, whether we've reached it yet, I mean, there's a little bit of debate as to whether we're actually in a different era, or we've been in it for a while, or let's say it's.
I've heard about a 300-year transitional period as well.
Yeah, so we could be. I think we're in the middle of the transition into a new era, which means that unless you can adapt, you're going to get left behind. And this is probably where this kind of splitting or the schism in the realm is actually manifesting. And I think most of us can sort of attest to experience it on a day-to-day basis when we communicate or interact with people. Like I say, I spoke to somebody earlier, and I said to them about Canada, and they were totally oblivious to anything taking place in Canada. Which isn't a judgment. I mean, it could actually be a beautiful thing if you're totally that unaware, or maybe they're so aware that they don't need to place their attention on it. I don't know. It's not for me to judge.
Or it could be that they're actually living in a parallel universe where that just doesn't exist to them. A parallel timeline, a slight schism. I've heard this idea that there are now two different Earths existing. One is in a lower fourth dimensional paradigm, and one is still existing in 3D. And everyone is physically standing on this Earth, but some people are, and this is where like the Mandela effect comes in. And you know, I've said it many times since 2012. It's now like there are two parallel realities.
Yeah.
We can see the people in the other reality, and we can appreciate that they can't see our reality, but they can't. It's like they just literally think we're mad, and obviously we think that they've been brainwashed.
Yeah. Well, I think for the most part, at some point, I mean, I've started to remove my attention on certain people because
you have to detach at some point.
Yeah, there has to be a certain amount of detachment, and there has to be an element of working on self, and also magnetizing others that are happy to enter into a new era and have some basic understanding of the new era and what it means, or even just basic understanding of cosmology, and that there might actually be different eras. Because trying to explain that we're going into a different era to a normie is actually quite a difficult thing to do, and they do not factor that in, that there might be a certain change within the cosmos. You know, we live. It's obvious to see that we're living in a different age than 100 years ago, 200 years ago.
I felt it in 2020 when they said the Mayan calendar ended, and I just said this. I know I keep talking about it, but I said it in the speech in 2020 when I talked about these dates and how 2020 felt more like what 2012 should have felt like. And, well, 8 years. 2020. Yeah, 6 years. 8 years. Sorry, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that far to be off. But yeah, that's also when they turned the Hadron Collider on as well. 2012.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks turned it on. Sorry, go on.
Well, if you use the analogy of like a relationship breakdown, so if you're in a relationship and then you go through the period of breaking up, which is can be quite traumatic, and then once you're separated, there comes a point where you have to move on and start looking forwards and building a new life. If you keep looking back or going backwards, then it's not healthy, it's not helpful. So I think we're literally, I say we're, as people that are interested in a new era, we're going through a divorce process with the state, with the government, with even religion or dogma.
A long sloppy breakup.
Yeah, and it can be a bit messy. It could be a clean break, but I think we've been so immersed in the marriage, albeit an abusive marriage.
We've only ever had one system of oppression. It's like you got with a girl when you're 16, the same girl you've ever been with, and you got to break up with her when you're 40.
Yeah. So a lot of us are experiencing this, and really we need to start focusing on things and people that we align with. But that's not to say that we should be in fear or feel threatened by those that we don't. So I mentioned this earlier before we went live, that you can't always control what comes into your life or what is coming or what happens to you, but you definitely can affect the outcome.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at this realm as a school to teach us or to help us grow or develop, then we're going to have to experience certain things. And I always use the analogy of going to the gym. You know, if you want to get fit, you go to the gym. What do you do when you go to the gym? You get resistance. if without resistance, there'll be no effect. There'll be no point.
No pain,
So
no gain.
yeah, now whether you like it or not, you're going to receive resistance, and this is what we call the denying force. The denying force is a naturally occurring force within this dimension, this realm. So the secret to it is not to fear it, not to be scared of it, or even run away from it. In fact, as an example, using the gym analogy again, for those who really want to get super fit, they'll go to the gym more often, and they'll hit the resistance harder to get more of an effect. Well, the same in this realm. Those in the know and those that understand how it works, they actually evoke more denying force. They don't run away from it. So, as an example, if you wanted to, if you felt like you wanted to grow, you could actually go to the mountains and sit in a cave or whatever and meditate. Of course, there's going to be certain resistance, but there's going to be a lot of resistance that you might need. Whereas living in the city, being surrounded by the denying force, could actually be very useful to certain people. There's not.
Oh no! Look, just when he's in the flow, that always happens in the Guardian. Straight back in. The Candyman's back.
Yeah, it's not one prescription for everybody. So we're all at different stages. We all need different things. Now, something else to think about: your essence or your soul, prior to incarnating into this realm, probably sat down and done a deal, had negotiated with this realm, with the creator, with various forces, that you needed certain experiences to develop certain aspects of your soul or your creation. So don't ever beat yourself up because something happens to you. That is not necessarily a great thing. You need to start to view it in a different way. And this is how we use the synthesis, that we don't run away from things we don't like and only be attracted to things we do like. We need to hold the two in balance, and we use the third force. The only way you can use the third force is to apply reason and to have ideas and intuition. And once you can start to do that, you can start to use any situation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the situation is. It all is useful. It's all to do with the mindset and how you approach it. So, as an example, if I'm in a room and somebody walks in who I know is problematic to me, I could actually sit there and be quite upset that this person's walked into the room, and I'm going to have a bit of a maybe psychological or even physical fight with them. Well, I could just change my perspective on it and use the situation as an opportunity to grow. And that makes a whole world of difference. Yeah, it makes a whole world of difference.
Yeah. Well, it's about rising to the challenge or cowering in defeat at the end of the day. I've always said from my studies of the law of one, this catalyst is given to us for a reason, and it's up to us to do what we want to do with it, and what the apocalypse is what you make of it. You can become a covert NPC and live in complete fear of the Divot. You can spend the rest of your life fighting, hammer and nail the Soviet Union, going to every protest every weekend, getting arrested all the time. You could do that if you want, or you could see what was coming and try to adapt and to grow and to do some inner work and work on yourself, which is, I think, what we've all come to this conclusion now, that this is the final frontier, because that's where the denying force wants to go. Yeah, taking your house and your land and you owning nothing is secondary to getting inside the biosphere.
Yeah, there are some activities that are very useful for understanding or understanding how the realm works. So, as an example, surfing. Surfing is a very good example because when you surf, you can't use strength by itself. equally, you can't be totally relaxed. You need tension, you need relaxation, you need the balance between the two for the optimal result.
Yeah.
If you're too tense, you'll fall off. If you're too relaxed, you'll just fall off. There's a fine balance between the two, or even swimming. Swimming is a good example, especially if you swim for a long distance. You can't use strength alone. There comes a point where you have to give up, relax, trust, and have no fear. Drop the importance.
Mm.
So, traveling through this realm is very similar. It's like you're swimming through this realm, you're surfing. Probably if we could fly, it'd be a similar thing. I'm talking metaphysically or...
I'm definitely finding it with skating, with learning my new skates at the moment. It's a balance between being relaxed enough to get the most out of it, and strength, because you need strength to go forward, to push. But if you're not relaxed enough when you try to turn and stop, you're going to absolutely stack it. I just spent a lot of money on these new skates, and they're so fast, and really big long wheelbase. So trying to stop on them, obviously there's no stops. Yeah, it's a real balance between relaxation and strength. Absolutely.
Yeah, and these things can be applied to everything, every scenario, every interaction. Understanding the laws of nature, the forces of nature. Having a basic understanding of the cosmology of nature and the sun and the moon. You got the triad: sun, moon, earth. Moon could be the negative, sun could be the positive, and the earth would be neutral, the neutralizing factor.
Yeah, which is that's what the Hegelian dialectic was. What we're basically talking about tonight. It's a triad.
Yeah.
With synthesis being the third point.
Yeah, the third point of perception. And like I say, in order to get anywhere, to move forwards, because I am sensing that there's a lot of people in the counter narrative movement that have maybe getting a bit disillusioned or despondent or frustrated. Well, I think we've gone past a certain point where people have got to start building rather than identifying the problem. This is where the real work starts. For the most part, the problem was exposed to us for free.
Yeah, they did it for us.
They literally, they had to do it for us. So now the real work starts, where you can start to attract those who you can align with, those in your tribe. It doesn't necessarily have to be physically. And you may have to detach from certain people or certain situations, certain things. These things you have to go through, and they're not going to be easy. I should imagine 2022 is going to be quite a tough time for a lot of us. Nobody's going to be free from this work. Oh, that reminds me, I've got this new word. I call it freedom.
Freedom. I like it. I've heard that one before. Right, I've got these screenshots up here, which is where we were having the private chat during the week in Rise Above Team.
Yeah.
And it's really sort of bringing down to some more sort of granular detail about the age of Aquarius and some of the archetypal themes. So traditionally, Aquarius is associated with electricity.
Sorry, just before we do this, I just want to make it clear that this is a Wikipedia definition.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to agree. And I will say that even the age of Aquarius has been psyopted at some point and corrupted. Okay. So just bear that in mind. So this is
a little precursor.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So you were saying Ra is the perfect term. Ra is like the element and the nature of air. The age of air is the sky and up. Most of the truth movement, as we've been saying tonight, you said here, they're angry, which is emotion. Now, traditionally, Aquarius is associated with electricity, computers, flight, democracy, freedom, humanitarianism, idealism, modernization, astrology, nervous disorders, rebellion, nonconformity, philanthropy, veracity, perseverance, humanity, and irresolution. That's from Wikipedia. The age of Aquarius is a time when humanity takes control of the earth and its own destiny and its rightful heritage, with the destiny of humanity being the revelation of truth and the expansion of consciousness, and that some people will experience mental enlightenment in advance of others and therefore be recognised as the new leaders of the world. So this is from Wiki.
Yeah. But that last bit they put at the bottom.
Right, that's the best bit.
The best bit, yeah, they try and tuck it away a little bit. Now, the final bit of the last bit, it kind of makes it sound like that there's going to be kind of new leaders. The way I read that is that we start to lead ourselves.
Yeah, the self-mastery. Leaders, the individual leaders of themselves. We take our own leadership back into our own hands.
Yeah, and I do think that we are entering a time of self-sovereignty, self-masterhood, or mastership. These things are what we need, as opposed to being a slave. But not for everybody.
Yeah, they're not for everyone. Big up the USA crew tuned in for Sora's Ace. We've got good viewership tonight. 280 people right now from all over the realm. Tuned in for a bit of Wednesday Night Rabbit. So yeah, I mean, this third option synthesis is something I've even been rapping about it since Master Lee taught me the synthesis. Now I feel powerful, like I was made for this. It's like we've been applying this a lot. Choose the third option. Yeah. Let me bring someone else into the fold as an example. Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Do you see him as like how shall I put it? A third option operative, or I think you've mentioned it before, like a swinging pendulum.
Yeah, well, you'll hear me use the term pendulum. Pendulum basically means anything that takes you off the third option. So the pendulum is used to be left or right, white or black, up or down, or whatever. Yeah, it's the polarity. So certain characters are designed to act as pendulums to take you off your focus, off your balance. And they can be quite controversial figures. Now, you've heard me talk about Elon Musk, that I'm not quite sure he could actually be a good guy. It's kind of obvious that he's not a good guy, but actually he could be. He could be pretending not to be a good guy. I'm sitting on the fence with regards to Elon Musk. I know he's behind a lot of things that we would consider not to be good for humanity. But I don't know whether he could actually be not real with regards to the things he's saying he's going to do. But also, he comes out with these very controversial things that kind of go against the narrative. Now, the example that I was using with Elon Musk with regards to, say, the truckers, because he came out in support of the truckers. Yeah. So then that meant a lot of people in the counter-narrative movement were saying, well, there you go.
Oh, God. They really don't want Inner Guardians to speak tonight, do they? Until he jumps back in, he's straight back in. Look at that. Pitbull terrier of metaphysical business. Get back to it.
Yeah, so a lot of the counter-narrative movement was saying that that's proof positive that the whole trucker thing is a psyop because Elon Musk is supporting it. Well, straight away, I looked at it in a different way. I looked at it, well, what if this was an organic event by the truckers, and the only way that the denying force or those with the narrative could bring it down would be to get one of their characters or actors to support it. The same could be said with somebody like Keanu Reeves. Now, Keanu Reeves has always been perceived as the good guy, but he could equally be used, but in the opposite direction. Hence, films like The Matrix and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, The Matrix 4 especially.
Yeah.
Have you seen it yet?
So, I I watched about 3/4 of it, and I didn't bother. I actually think they've done that to dumb it down and to kind of ridicule.
Yeah,
I think they exposed too much. Yeah.
Yeah, take the edge off the first three.
Yeah. I think that was so that got psyopted. So that's another example. And if you look around a lot of these events, you can see how it works. Because you got to kind of put yourself in the mindset of those pushing the narrative. If something comes to counter it, how would you counter the counter?
By becoming it.
Yeah. Yeah, take control of it.
Which is what they've done with every counter culture movement since day dot.
Yeah, and I mean, if you used to give me a long list and ask me, are these organic or are these psyops? It's very difficult to tell. But like I say, I can take the truth from organic events. I can equally take the truth from psyops. Psyops are not a problem for me because I can use the third option. Whereas if I was stuck in polarity, I'd be like, no, that's good. No, that's bad. No, that's good. No, that's bad. That's all good, all bad. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's like I said, we're working against something, or not. Sorry, I don't want to say working against. We're stood in the face of something that works like an algorithm. It's very efficient. It never does just one thing at once. It's like, oh, that's just about money. No, that's about control. No, it's about that. And 5 or 6 levels, at least. It's always at least 3 things for sure. It never just kills one bird with one stone. It kills multiple birds with a stone every time a stone is thrown. So, and this is sort of like, it fuels confusion. It gives the chitter chatter of the Hegelian dialect for everyone to argue about, what's going on here, what are the motives of this, etc., etc. Any of these events. Yeah. So, yeah.
But it all goes back to the first principle of the triad and understanding that there's always 3 forces in every event, every phenomenon that takes place within this realm. And the key to it is to be able to rise above, to take the third option when you're confronted with something that's of a polar nature.
Yeah, don't get sucked onto the horizontal line of the 2 opposing binary forces, because like all, if you notice all of God Vadge's videos, and I haven't seen the new one yet. I know it's out. He talks about these 2 magnetic polar opposites, whether it's in a geographical position, in sort of a metaphysical idea. It's always about these 2 negative poles pulling the energy off each other.
If you go back to that Wikipedia clip, I think it's the last bit.
Yeah.
There's a word, irresolution. Now, that's a very interesting word.
Irresolution, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that basically means the quality of not making a decision. So you could perceive that as a negative, the hesitation, the ability to not make a decision. But in actual fact, it can be very useful as long as it's the quality of not making a decision. Because that word describes not falling for polarity.
Right, okay, I've got you.
So even when you examine and study the language, the words that are used, even in this Wikipedia, it can actually elucidate a lot more than what you may think. Because we automatically assume that the inability to make a decision is a negative. We're taught that, aren't we?
Sure.
It's deemed as a quality to execute straight away.
But what about if it's a war and the war is a false flag, unjust war that's basically a massacre, and you're asked to pick a side? then irresolution could be like it could save your life. It's like it's like there are still people that argue online about whether communism is good or not, and say, oh, if you don't like that, you're a fascist. They're still caught in like a binary opposite from like the Second World War.
Well,
Basically,
even if you look at the Nazis and Hitler, they're still. I mean, I don't know. Like Hitler did a lot of good things for Germany.
it's a great painter as well.
Kind of treading on dangerous territory, aren't I?
Well, you know, we had John Hamer on last week, so he says lots of things about the man with the moustache you're not supposed to say. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. Like when before he came to power, Germany was in a very bad way in the Weimar Republic, and you know he did sort some things out. Yeah, but you can't say that.
Yeah, but you could apply the same principle to probably most things. I mean, even like Boris Johnson, he's still got a huge following, and I mean, I don't know, has he done anything good? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I think his efforts for sort of pageantry, alarm clock business. He deserves a medal for waking people up. I reckon, for sure.
yeah,
We're going to wrap it up in a couple of minutes because I said we'd only go for half an hour tonight, and we've done an hour. But yeah, I think this is an important sort of like archetypal sort of mode of thought for everyone to start, if you're not already adopting it, to start pondering on, because I'll agree. I've seen people in the the counter movement that are getting sucked into a lot of things, the Novak argument, etc., etc. You know, all of these things that are getting thrown out of this catalyst. Don't chuck yourself on the bonfire with the catalyst. Sit back and enjoy the bonfire with some marshmallows. You know.
yeah. I think it's a good attitude to have towards it. Is what can you learn from it? It's not a case of is it right or wrong, but what can you learn? What is it revealing? Either about yourself, about the nature of humanity, about the realm. What does it reveal? What can you learn from it?
Yeah,
and I think that's the most important part to take.
Or maybe if you've worked out what's revealing, you can use that to show other people. You know, look at when you hear someone in the pub, you know, banging out the same talking points, but in the polarity about whatever thing the clown pantomime was thrown up on that day. You know, use the third option to try and trigger someone else to think about the possibility there might be more than two options.
Yeah,
because there definitely is.
You've heard me speak of this before about being reasonable and the reason of God. My take on the Creator is that the Creator is actually very reasonable. The closer you get to the Creator, things become more reasonable. And excuse me, when you're in the presence of, say, the divine, it means that you're being reasonable. And when anything doesn't like reason, then that's a good flag that it's not of the divine. It's not on the divine spectrum. But we really need to adopt a new way of being. Not everybody, but for those who want to survive, what's to come, whether it's psychologically, even emotionally, and physically, we really need to upgrade the way we function. And one thing I just really want to say is that we need to start living life with the non-expression of negative emotion, because I think this is going to be the next thing that is going to come up for everybody, the expression of negative emotion.
That's going to be plenty of catalyst to invoke that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mentioned this last Friday that we need to get breathing going again properly, correctly, exercise the breath, and realize that, especially if we are going in towards the age of Aquarius, where mentalism is going to be important, that we can create what we think. So we need to start being careful about what we think about, where we place our attention. Because as an example, if we were in the age of, say, the emotions, and we had certain thoughts, they may not manifest as easy. Maybe it was easier to manifest through the emotions, if we're transversing into a new era, which is more mentalism, and we haven't got control of our thoughts, we may manifest some things that are not useful. Equally, we need to be able to use our thoughts and ideas to be able to co-create something that's more suitable. Because we're not going to be able to change this through violence, through being angry. It's proven that anything like that doesn't work. If it did work, we wouldn't be where we are today in this situation.
Sure. Yeah, it's a whole new mode of being that's needed.
Yeah, and this is right. It's proof positive that everything that we tried in the past hasn't worked. It hasn't worked because we wouldn't be in this predicament right now. So why are we clinging on to the old way of being?
Well, as Einstein famously said, you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got a more basic one. I say you can't solve a £10 problem with a fiver.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a similar sort of thing.
You need £33.33. Okay, with regards to responding, the realm responding, we'll cover that on Friday. Are you going to be around on Friday?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we really need to touch on that. Cause,
yeah, well, I've got a couple of examples in Friday's Schwab show. So yeah, in the Guardians, thank you very much. Right, guys, don't forget, I'm going to give you a heads up of this before Friday. Saturday night, if you are on the southwest of the UK Soviet Union, try and make it down to Bournemouth for DNA, or try and come down to the outreach protest during the day. Check it out. It's 12 o'clock at Bournemouth Cenotaph, and 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. there is an after party at DNA on Old Christchurch Road in Bournemouth. I was about to say we've been invited. I invited myself to do this set. I said to Campbell at Jams 3, and I was like, I'm going to come down, I'm going to bring out Oma Beats, we're going to do an anti-Coviet Rise Above set. He said, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, you can come down. I think it's £5 entry to get in. Tickets are available, jamforfreedom.com/shop. Okay. Right, so in the Guardians, we'll hopefully see you on Friday.
Just quickly.
Yes.
I know we want to close, but just quickly, stuff like this the music event that you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good example of what we're talking about, as opposed to just a straight protest or rally or fight or whatever. Going to do something, being creative, making something happen, but that isn't necessarily a direct protest. It's almost a greater protest. Is that you're going about your business and you're creating something with art or music or energy of life.
That's why I wanted to get involved. I said to the other half, I said, well, we should just go out and show our faces. Like, we don't really go out anymore because it's like, what is there to do? And then I thought, well, yeah, wait a minute, this is in my hometown. Really, we should make people dance, but at the same time, laying down some deep metaphysical occult bars and cutting down the Soviet Union at the same time that people can really enjoy, because they will really enjoy it, trust me. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting back on stage and basically laying it down with content that I can't always say at other festivals.
Yeah, well, when I talk about a new way of being, that could equally mean a new way of protesting. It doesn't mean just a new way of being for yourself. It means a new way of doing everything.
Sure.
A new way of revolting, a new way of protesting, a new way of rallying. I mean, like the truckers as an example. That's quite a new way of doing things. It's highly effective.
Well, yeah,
very effective.
Yeah,
it's the food chain. Hits the food chain directly.
It hits everything, the everything chain. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. In the meantime, guys, we will see you on Friday night at 9 p.m. If you can make it down to Bournemouth, if you want to find any details about where to stay, email me at riseabove livestream@gmail.com, or you could just go on booking.com. That'd be easier. So yeah, it's Old Christchurch Road in Bournemouth. In the Guardians, we'll see you on Friday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rise above.
Rise Above. We'll end with a music video. I think we'll do the Rise Above theme tune. Let's go.
Rise above, generate, rise above, extinguish fear, rise above, abstract stillness, rise above, domino, rise above, extinguish fear, rise above, extinguish fear when we generate. Since day one we've been going in militant, not same, also different, abstract stillness, no equivalent, double O's flows omnipotent, may I suggest a lyric proof vest, I got a bar that will tear through a chest, cause a massacre from my caliber, your Kevlar can't protect. Anyway, back to the subject, expose devilish acts to the public. I talk topics, they won't publish, instigating cold wars like Sputnik. Observe you with a satellite view, heard the cattle these parasites do. Worshipping the gods of our conquerors is a blinded acolyte view. Left as the spineless remain reminded, they drink blood and sacrifice you. So misguided, laws are provided to benefit the chosen few. So we rise above and extinguish fear when we generate love. A single candle lights up the darkness, that is the power we all harness. Let's identify targets, light them up, lift them down. Carpet beef, sprinkling garnish. The message, word, power, sound. I don't care if my rep gets tarnished. Split this shit till I'm dead in the ground. Where they pollute your mind with garbage. Do one thing, just hold it down. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate love. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above and extinguish fear when we generate. It's more than 232s in a hook. You want lyrics? I write books. Where your head double L overtook with a statement you can't overlook, and I drop rhymes you can't unhear. Plot lines never unclear, and I tell them direct to your ear. I doubt the signs that guided us here. And these lies from lost puppeteers who cut through throats like Schwartz buccaneers. Call to arms, don't volunteer, or take orders from brigadier. From war and carnage they profiteer. The march goes on till we disappear. It's my duty to interfere, smash them systems like chandeliers. MCs chat about whips and cars, I rap bars about pyramids on Mars and other weird subjects hidden for years, locked in casks. Strap a protective mask, inform your collective war and star. It's a harrowing task, and I'm swimming in fears on a narrowing path, I'm powering past. All these bullshit rappers will devour you last, and they're carrying fast. Drop from the top of a towering shaft, push from the ledge of a soaring peak. Shook from the pledge of my war and speak. Close to the edge, the outlook's bleak. Frozen breath cause the output's weak. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate love. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above and extinguish fear when we generate.
On the speed of unfolding agendas, endless means will meet for the blender. Away from your breathless dream, unconsciously rendered. You surrendered all ways and means to fight and combat a killer vaccine from a wicked regime with a war machine. No hesitation to bomb that. Any destination to bomb that. The lax ability to bomb back. I never take up arms against my brothers, so just tell me what you want that. So I ride these rings to push the extremes. Tired of blood flowing in streams and the fire in scuds with luminous streams. Clouds in the sky, not cumulus. I'm serious, far from humorous. Your biopsy results are tumorous. Outlook is dubious. The bad news starts when you exit the uterus. Do we really stand a chance? Well, that's a big question to ask. When you're stood on the edge of the precipice, you can't look back and reminisce. It's too late now, you should have took heed and note of subliminal messages. Looked in the cracks of the crevices. Use your brain to identify blatant menaces. Blinded by Babylon's benefits, denying the Amazon's evidence. Too ready to consume the remedies dispensed to you by your enemies. Yeah, we move in the shadows in attempts to evade. Yeah, we move in the shadows to all-seeing eye. Yeah, we move in the shadows, we move in the shadows, move in the shadows, move in the shadows. Yeah, we move in the shadows, move in the shadows. So we move in the shadows in attempts to evade. Yeah, we move in the shadows. We move in the shadows in attempts to evade. The all-seeing eye, all-seeing gaze. Solidarity, cohesion, together resist their lesion. I never stop it while I'm still breathing. Forever hot on the topic, I'm steaming. Forever seen psychotically reading, documenting, plotting and scheming. Their illogical teaching leave me yearning for a topical preaching. Peeling back the layers of deception, mirror tracks, untrue directions. Peer through cracks in perception, say my prayers then face my reflection. Knowledge of self and power of mind, intellectual wealth, powers of mind. Come up the hour, use these powers to burn down the tower.